the madhouse.
Cheers to episode 3.
Episode 3.
Episode 3. Jose Cuervo, Silver, Tequila.
Dr. McGillicuddy's down the throat.
Ooh. All right. Oh my God. Give me a second. Today is Monday, February 1st. Happy February, boys. 7:56 p.m. and Jared Goff is our starting quarterback. I will never forget where I was when I heard the news. I was drunk on a Saturday night, standing in our apartment hallway, and Alex said, "Did you see what Evan texted in the group chat?" No, I did not. I look, Evan has the news. We traded Stafford. So, what was everyone's instant reaction when you heard the news? Alex, we will start with you today.
Immediate reaction while I was pounding down Taco Bell late on a Saturday night.
Ooh.
I love Jared Goff. I don't know if I love him as a football player, but I love the guy, Jared Goff, and that was my immediate reaction, and I was extremely excited about it.
My gut initial reaction was hate, double hate, capital H, hate. I hated it. Right, or my first reaction, right when I saw that Adam Schefter sent a notification to my phone only, was like, Evan, spread the word. I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't want anything to do with it, and I wish we never happened.
Wow. So, maybe our brains work a little bit different, where you guys start analyzing the trade. My brain was like, wow, this is weird. This is happening at 10 p.m. on a Saturday. And it happened fast because it feels like I don't know what timeline I was expecting, but I didn't think the deal would get done this fast. I was not ready for this. I felt like I was caught with my pants around my ankles when this trade came through. And then I'm not going to say it killed my buzz. It was like, I need to focus up, see what's going on right now. And then that quickly led to just brainwashing myself full of good vibes from alcohol, watching Jared Goff highlight tapes, not low light tapes, and be like, wow, I think we got a guy here. And then I woke up, and then the other part of my brain took over, and I start to look at it from the bigger picture, which we'll get into. So I think the overarching question to start is, where do you guys think we go from here? Evan, I'll throw it to you, but if you don't want to talk about that right now, you can just riff on whatever you want.
Where do we go from here? My biggest thing that I want to say is I don't want the Lions front office to lie to us. Quit lying to us. They're out there blatantly lying in our face, and Lions fans don't see it.
How so?
And I'm wondering if I'm the only one.
Yeah, I think you are.
The fact that they say Jared Goff is our guy, he's it. Yeah, guys, we wanted him. We wanted him here. And Goff's out there saying, I'm glad that I'm finally wanted by somebody. Well, guess what, buddy? In 2 years, you're not going to be here. We're cutting you. Just tell us it's a gap year. Just tell us it's a gap. It's a gap quarterback trying to piece back this problem that we have. Because he's not our future quarterback. He's not. And the draft picks that we got are nice. Not ideal. They're nice. But Goff isn't our future quarterback. And the Lions, Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes saying that he's our future quarterback, no, he's not. He's not. I mean, I hate where we stand right now with Goff on our roster.
Why?
I do.
Why?
Rebuttal me, Alex. I see you.
Well, I just want to know why you hate having him right now on the roster.
Because if you look at it, the Lions front office are gonna lie to all the Lions fans and say, "Oh, we're retooling. We're not rebuilding. We're retooling." No, we are in full rebuild mode, whether you like it or not. We are rebuilding, and I want to ask you guys: when was the last time you saw a rebuild? And that team that's rebuilding took on a bigger quarterback contract than what they had. We have a bigger cap hit, $13 million added compared to quarterbacks from Goff to Stafford this year. You don't do that. To rebuild, you don't add more money onto the payroll. I'm sorry, you don't.
No, I agree. I agree with Evan saying, and I can't think of a situation where a team is rebuilding. I also agree with him that I'm kind of sick of the phrase retooling already. It's like a PR move, and it feels like every single Lions reporter and Twitter fan is saying the phrase retooling. What I ultimately think is happening here is I see it similar to Evan, but I'm not going to guarantee he ends up being cut. I see it as a 2-year tryout, and I think that's kind of what everyone has been saying or kind of leading on. Obviously, like Evan said, the front office and the coaching staff make it seem like this is our guy. giving him confidence. You kind of have to say that. Like, obviously you don't want to be lied to, but you can't come out and say we're going to take Goff for 2 years and then see what happens. I think this ties back to a point Evan brought up earlier, probably in our first show or maybe second, is that Campbell, which is weird because Campbell was given his 6-year contract before this deal happened. But this like cements the fact that it's almost like they're stalling or putting a pause on the Lions' plans for like a year or two with Goff there, and then they're really going to assess whether they need to tear it all down, or if they think Goff shows something after those 2 years, they'll pursue forward as a contender. Like, it's almost like Brad Holmes is kind of building a gap where he gets to settle into Detroit for 2 years and then decide exactly where this franchise needs to go. And I can see where Evan's point is he's sold on Goff not being the guy and the team needs to blow up. You want to blow up as fast as possible, like this year, so that way you hypothetically get good faster. But what I think Detroit is doing is like this in-between version where the ultimate decision about whether we're going to try to contend around Goff or just be terrible and get rid of Goff after 2 years, we won't know that decision for 2 more years. So we're kind of like in a purgatory with a 2-year tryout on a guy.
Well, I think you two are both viewing it the wrong way. I don't think you guys are exactly understanding why we did what we did.
Explain it to me.
So,
like I'm 5.
Number one key to rebuilding is draft capital. The more draft capital you have, the more young talent you can bring in on smaller contracts.
Agreed so far.
So that is what I would consider rebuilding. Now, in order to get the 3 picks we got from them, we agreed to take Jared Goff's contract because they didn't want him.
I would disagree. I don't want to derail you, but I would say we only got 1 extra first rounder by taking on Goff. I think a first and a third were a lock.
That's what I said.
Without Goff. You said the 3 picks.
Yeah, we got
I'm saying specifically that first rounder.
Okay. Well, if you would have let me finish, but thank you. Anyways, so the other teams, which is what I was getting to, trade-wise, was 1 pick or 2 max. And this, taking on Goff's contract, got us a 3rd. So if you can do math, 2 to 3, that's more picks, which therefore is better for rebuilding.
I feel like he's talking down to us, Evan.
Oh,
if I can do math.
Just
Can I
making
rebuttal?
sure you know.
Can I just ask? I just want to rebuttal your one quick point.
Sure.
Your one quick point
Go ahead.
is I get that to adding on more picks is always better, but I'm also for of adding more picks like in the now. Like I wanted more picks in this upcoming draft. I get that they didn't have any first round picks. Fine, I get that. But I want more young players now, not down the road. It's big packing grants. We're kind of just kicking the stone down the road for a couple more years, and then we're going to rebuild. I wanted the rebuild to happen right now.
So you, just based on what you're saying, you want less picks in order to have a pick this year. That's what you want.
Well, I think
Because the other teams were offering 1 first-round pick for this year, but that doesn't get you 3 picks.
let's jump right into the rumored other trades that are out there now because we're going to get to it at some point, and I think we need to cover it like in full because it's very important because basically I don't know if this always happens for trades, but I feel like there hasn't been a trade I've seen where all the other offers are kind of laid on the table because that's what you have to compare everything to. What could have you gotten? Now, I'm going to say this at the beginning as a preface. I'm not sure we can take any of the offer deals as 100% that's exactly what it was because you never know what could have happened if we had gone back with Washington or Carolina and said, hey, the Rams are giving us this. Can you do more? We don't know. We weren't in the room. Here's the thing from 2 articles that I had seen where Albert Breer was the main reporter from Sports Illustrated that broke all this down. The only one I wrote down that really is the one that everyone's comparing it to is that the Panthers offered the 8th pick in the NFL draft and a later pick, very vague, and that was their offer. Now, we don't know, like I said, if we can add more onto that, if we could have pitted LA and the Panthers together. Now, for broad perspective, and this is something I learned this weekend too, I had heard of it but never really dug into it. The famous Jimmy Johnson trade value draft capital chart that every GM in like the league uses was invented by the Cowboys. It basically gives a value to every pick in the draft, and so on draft day, you know what 2 picks equal that pick. The 8th pick in the NFL draft is worth 1,400 points on this scale, and we can say here that reasonably, barring any crazy circumstances, the Rams picks we are going to get are going to fall in the 20 to 30 range. Maybe 32 if they win it all. Who knows? It's probably going to be in that range. The 20th pick is worth 850 points. Remember, the 8th is worth 1,400. The 30th pick is worth 620, and where the math works out perfect is the 26th pick is worth 700 points. So essentially, the 26th pick, if we got the 26th pick in next year's draft and the year after, 2022 and 2023, those two picks equal the 8th pick in this year's draft. So that's where the math becomes tough, because like what Evan's saying is if you value rebuilding as quick as possible, you would want that 8th pick now and be fine not taking on Goff's contract, starting Chase Daniel like Evan had mentioned, and just blowing this thing to the floor. And then you're so bad next year with Chase Daniel as quarterback that you then get a top 3 pick next year. So I guess, Alex, what would you say when you view it from that lens?
Well, I think it's also important to consider still is a business and they still have to sell tickets. So in terms of selling tickets with Jared Goff versus Chase Daniel, I mean, you can see why the organization would go the Jared Goff route to have a more competitive team. Not that that should matter, but it does. So I think that's important to note. Second, it really just depends how good we are, I guess, at evaluating talent and drafting. Because you would think having more picks could lead to more players that are successful versus 1 or 2 or whatever someone else offers. Once again, we don't even know if these offers are real. We really have no idea.
Peter King said, and this is where I say this is just too many rumors. He says the Rams were not the only team to offer 2 first-round picks for Stafford, but he didn't know what team that was. Crazy. And claims the picks were not as in the future, which is basically saying there was another team that offered their first-round pick this year and their pick next year, but didn't know who it was. I mean, the rumors are out of control with this, so we really don't know as Lions fans what it could have gotten. Quickly, before we give Evan some thoughts, I know he's probably wanting to jump in here, is I don't think, Alex, you seriously believe that selling tickets was a factor in this trade, especially given the fact we don't even know how many fans are going to be able to attend games next year. I don't think that went into selling. I don't think selling tickets is a good barometer here at all, and I'm striking that one down. If we were in court, I would hit overruled with my gavel.
If Sheila's in our front office, which she is, and the Fords are running our franchise, winning is not a priority, and I think we all know that. So
I disagree. I think they want to turn it around. I don't think selling tickets went into this trade at all.
So hiring Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia was a winning move, and they looked to win.
They didn't turn it over till Sheila told recently.
She's been in the front office the whole time.
Correct, but not like the head person.
Well, I can't just expect the Lions to make winning moves yet until they prove
No, I agree. Your point about trusting them to make draft picks is something that we all don't have much hope in, but we have a new regime now. Evan, where are your thoughts as the conversation progresses here?
Going back to like the draft picks, there's other rumors that we haven't touched on. Yes, the Panthers are rumored to offer the 8th pick and a later pick. Yeah. I think Albert Bear, like Grant mentioned earlier, also supposedly Washington offered the 19th pick and a 3rd rounder. Indianapolis Colts offered packages of picks and a player, but never the 21st overall pick. Pat McAfee on his talk show this morning texted the Colts GM, Chris Ballard, and said, hey, why didn't we get Stafford? And Chris Ballard was basically quoted on saying, they hit a home run, they hit a bomb. Good for them. San Francisco required, but the 49ers never offered the 12th overall pick. Broncos discussed a pick swap, equating a late round first pick. Patriots and Bears and Jets all checked in with the Lions. Nothing hit the ground running, and it's rumored that the Patriots offered a 2nd round pick and a player. And I understand where the Rams probably had the best package, the most picks. So everybody sees the most picks. I like the equating or evaluating the points totals for the picks, because I think it puts in perspective how valuable high picks are in the draft.
Yes.
And so breaking down the trade picks-wise, this is how I did it. So we got 3 picks. We got a first-round pick, basically for Stafford. Then we got another first-round pick for taking Goff. That way the Rams didn't have to deal with it.
Yes.
And we got a 3rd pick, just added an additional pick. But let's not forget, we hired Brad Holmes. Great hire so far. The Rams were rewarded a compensation 3rd-round pick for the hire of a minority. So I don't know if the Rams had 2. I don't know if this was their compensation pick. But the Rams had an extra 3rd pick just to throw at us. And the Rams haven't had a first-round pick in, I think, the last 7 years. They don't value first-round picks.
No.
And with Stafford, they're going for it. Their window for, they say the window for the win a championship is now. So like Ryan said, these picks are not going to be in the top 15. They're going to be later. They're going to be a playoff. They'll be pushing towards the 30s. That's what, I mean, picks are nice. Leave Goff out of it. It would be my hammer to the nail.
Yeah.
Gillen.
I think it's also important to note top picks matter and have high value when you're good at drafting. And we have proven to bust on high top picks multiple times.
But don't we have to go into this new regime as not judging them based on what's happened in the past? Because they really have like cleaned house.
I think
Right.
having
I agree with
more
that.
opportunities to draft someone and have like 3 shots at it versus 1 or 2, I think gives us a better chance in terms of getting someone that actually matters.
I agree.
Versus-
The more swings you have, the more likely it is to hit.
versus drafting Eric Ebron, or as we can already see through one season, Jeff Okuda is not looking like a number 3 overall pick. So
Well, let's not bring Jeff into this now, but I want to hit on
Or
the
Jeffrey.
Rams' point of view really quick because Evan went there, and I think we just need to cover this quickly because at the end of the day, we are football fans, and it's fascinating. This trade, I was telling Alex, like this is being talked about every single place. I can't listen to a single podcast without this being the premier thing for the day. From the Rams' perspective, I wrote like it's funny. It seems like they hate first-round draft picks, and they're a very interesting case study in this league of they don't seem to hold extreme value on those picks, where every single person says you need to build through the draft, you need to build through the draft, which they have. They drafted Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Jared Goff, all these people, but they're basically saying they're doing an NBA model where they're basically just throwing out draft picks in the future, and it's kind of reckless. Now, and we've kind of touched on this, I do see some optimistic Lions fans on Twitter reminding everyone that, you know, the NFL's crazy, the Rams may not be as good as you think, but honestly, we're in the trust tree. If there's no injuries to that football team, there's a very good chance that in 2022 and 2023, that's a 30th to 32nd pick in the draft. They are going to be very good. I don't see how, especially in an NFC that wasn't that strong this year, that they're not in the NFC Conference Championship game. But now here's the fun thing for Lions fans. If the Rams can't get it done with Stafford, then we can lay to bed all the excuses, I believe, that were made for Stafford all the years in Detroit. We get closure. You know, when there's a breakup, it's messy. You just want to know what you did wrong. We get that closure in Detroit now on this trade. If he goes out and he wins a Super Bowl, we know we are that bad of a franchise. We already kind of know, but we know we were holding him back. If he does not win a Super Bowl, let alone if they don't somehow win a playoff game, it's like, wow, like what were we so worried to get rid of? But with that being said, I'm happy for Stafford to succeed. I would love to see him succeed, especially if he gets to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in a playoff game. That would be awesome.
I think one other thing we need to note, Jared Goff is not some scrub either. I mean, he has had a couple down seasons the last 2 years, but he was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. He has talent, and I think we should at least give him a chance to be successful. We don't know if he's just going to be terrible, I think. There's definitely a chance he could be okay. I mean, he made a Pro Bowl twice. He went to a Super Bowl. He's not some bum. So I think there could be a chance. There's decent upside there of him being a pretty good quarterback. He's only 26. So I like the upside of taking Jared Goff, even if it means taking a bad contract.
Is he a system quarterback?
We'll see.
That's something I wrote too when we did Where Do We Go From Here. He might
He
be.
is.
He might be.
We'll see. We don't know.
I think this guarantees that at least for the next 2 years, our offense is going to lean heavily on our running game based on what Campbell has said of wanting to establish the run. Anthony Lynn has established the run in his career. And we have Goff and Swift now, and DeAndre Swift. Campbell talks about him glowingly. We all know here that he's a talented player. I'm interested to see if Anthony Lynn tries to emulate what McVay did with Goff, i.e. play action heavy, or, and I personally wouldn't mind this, just I went back and watched his Cal days as well. I'd be interested to see if we spread it out a little bit, having shotgun more, not taking all this time to develop. Because a big thing about Rams fans and how they saw it from watching their YouTube video breakdowns is that the years when they didn't have a great offensive line, he struggled because they would run those play action passes and the blitz would get there as he was basically turning around and he would panic. I think everyone here can agree he's not a extend the play type of quarterback. but I think there's potential there for allow him to make quick decisions in a spread offense sometimes, as opposed to just always relying on play action. The last thing I'll say about him, just as a player, really, is more as a person. I really like Goff as a person. I'm glad we have a quarterback I can get behind. I like his personality. It kind of reminds me of Stafford. They're not the same personality, but a guy you want to root for. I want him to succeed in Detroit. But if I'm being honest, my gut and what I've watched him tell me that he could win a playoff game for us one day. It'd have to be after those 2 years, so we'd have to impress in the first two. But with that being said, it's hard to stick with that opinion based on all the people that I value in the league that are out there that say Goff really isn't that good. And lastly, I wrote it in all caps, plus how good is he if the Rams have had him for this many years and they were that eager to get rid of him, that they gave us a king's ransom according to people out there. Like they were that, specifically McVay, it seemed like McVay was the main one behind this, was that willing and eager to get rid of him that they just jumped out of nowhere for this trade. Makes me nervous about Goff. I mean, McVay knows more about football. McVay has more football knowledge in his pinky than I have my whole body, so I mean, he's got to know something we don't. But maybe, like Alex said, he can turn it around. He's at a young age. We'll see what happens. He is going to have a chip on his shoulder. There's no doubt about that.
I do have one more thing, if I can go real quick on it. Just one thing. So for
Yeah,
everyone
go ahead
that
before
says,
we do a body bag.
for everyone that says like, oh, like bringing in Jared Goff ruins the rebuild, ruins our chances of a decent top 10 pick or
Slows
so.
the rebuild.
So ruining our chance at a good pick, okay, early on in the draft. Stafford, with him, we have the 7th pick. So, I mean, I just don't know if that really is going to matter when your defense gives up 45 points a game. So I don't think it matters having Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford. We proved we're going to be in the top 10 no matter what. So, Evan, put me in a body bag, please. Body bag.
I mean, I agree with the point that
Finish him.
Jared Goff is not better than Matthew Stafford. So I agree that we could still have a low pick, but I also like to think that somehow the players are better because they have better coaching. They enjoy their coach. They have a better locker room than when we had the poncho wearing guy beforehand. But
Matt Patricia.
I mean, let's not forget this whole marriage between Goff and the Rams was over the moment that McVay started the backup in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Which Jared had a broken thumb. I'll defend him to the death on that.
And
broken
grinded
thumb.
through it.
He had a broken thumb, and he told McVay he is ready to start. He's capable of starting. That's what he told McVay. McVay still went with the backup. And the Rams called Green Bay and said, hey, what about Aaron Rodgers? And they kicked him to the curb.
They did.
And there's reports out there that the Rams called the Lions early on Saturday, and they had a deal, and the Lions weren't budging. And then McVay called the Rams back and said, hey, we got to do it. This is my guy. And so they upped the ante, and that's what the trade turned out to be. Now, Stafford wanted to go to LA. He picked out McVay as one of the top guys he wants to play with.
Yeah.
And they had dinner Saturday night together after the trade was finalized.
Cabo.
Maybe it was Stafford saying, you got me out of Detroit, thank you.
Daiquiri.
And so, I mean, when you change the offense, I just don't think Goff's going to be that good. So we might still struggle, but I just don't want him in a Lions uniform.
I do. He looks sweet.
You better buy his jersey or you're a fraud.
I will. I'll wear it on this podcast for everyone to see.
I can't wait. To kind of spin into a new angle that I wrote down, I just want quickly your guys' thoughts on, because I found myself conflicted on it. I feel like a hypocrite because there's an angle here of where Lions fans, including myself, were sick of. It's interesting because when Patricia and Quinn got here and they started pulling people from New England, I was like, okay, let's see if this works. They know those people. They're coming from a winning team. Will it work? We now know that did not work. Evan has said he wants everyone on the New England Patriots that's on the Lions cut. So what do we think then about Brad Holmes just plucking a player from his old team? Because you can't hate Patricia and Quinn for doing that while Brad Holmes is doing that in his first major move as a Lions GM. It's very conflicting in my mind because I don't hate that he went and got Jared Goff in the picks, but also I was annoyed when they kept going back to New England players. So I don't know what to think about this. Could some of you shed light on it?
I think it's massively different.
How so?
In terms of when Bill Belichick is done with a player and they're owed, then they're going to get signed for a bunch of money and he knows they're not worth it, he doesn't take them. And then some team takes them and they suck. And that happens often. Not just at the Lions. It happens basically every Patriots free agent that leaves.
Fair.
Other than Tom Brady, which is completely different circumstance.
Chandler Jones.
he was traded.
Also fair.
But yeah, that's what I think. I think it's just different in terms of New England and Bill Belichick knowing that he doesn't want old, washed-up players anymore, and the Lions being the dummies they are and taking them.
But what about McVay knowing that they already have paid him, so they're screwed, but they're willing to take that dead cap money and go take on Stafford's contract as well? Like, I'm not saying McVay is Belichick by any means, but I'm saying he's a smart football mind, so he in his gut said, we need to get someone else in here.
I think we should just view Goff as a first-round pick because that's really why we got him. So if we're not going to win with him based on what you guys think anyways, then we got 2 first-round picks and a third. We're rebuilding, so it really doesn't matter much because we're just going to cut him after 2 years if we need to.
Evan, is Brad Holmes in love with Jared Goff?
There's a lot of rumors out there saying that he did the Rams a favor. His old stomping grounds did him a favor by taking the contract on.
Like a Derek Jeter
And
move.
let's not forget, Brad Holmes, his job in Los Angeles was head of college scouting. So he could have – I'm not saying he was. I'm not saying he was the one that pushed Goff, but he was definitely in that room discussing Goff as the number 1 pick.
He was the one that pushed for Goff. It's been confirmed.
There you go. He was. So do I hope he pans out? Yes. But I also feel like that Holmes helped out the Rams in taking on the contract.
Would you rather lose this year or go 8-8 and sneak into the playoffs and lose in the first round?
Lose. This is rebuild.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stafford was the greatest quarterback in Lions history, and we could never sneak into the playoffs. What makes you think that Goff's going to be able to sneak us into the playoffs?
well, we did sneak 3 times.
Yeah,
but never won.
we've snuck in a few times.
But I'm with Evan overall that if we aren't winning a playoff game, then let's just be bad. But now if Goff wins a playoff game, like holy cow, like does that shoot him up? My Lions QB all-time draft, like big board. Like he's number 1. He's better than Stafford in my mind if he wins us a playoff game. That's how like simple it comes down to. You win us a playoff game, your royalty. What do we think about Dan Campbell in the Peter King article, Pro Football Talk? He wrote that Dan Campbell liked Goff better than Teddy Bridgewater, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Drew Lock, hinting at the reason this could have more moved towards the Rams is because, like they said, which is good to hear that they weren't lying when they said they want to collaborate. So Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell both talked about what quarterbacks that were in the trade that they liked, that Dan Campbell also liked Goff. I thought that was interesting that Dan's input was valued here, and that could have played a role in getting the deal done.
I'll pick back off what I just talked about. And I'm sure they did their scouting. I'm sure they did on every single quarterback that was available in a trade situation possibility. But I don't know if he's better than some of those guys. And I feel like Brad Holmes is more comfortable with Jared Goff in the facility because he's familiar with him, because he knows him. He scouted him through college and watched him play in the Rams uniform. Mm-hmm. Do I think that the other quarterbacks are great? No. But do I feel like some of the quarterbacks might have better talent? A little bit, yes. I mean, Drew Lock's younger. Teddy Bridgewater has won. And Jimmy Garoppolo was starting in the Super Bowl last year. Don't get me wrong. Jimmy Garoppolo was mainly because of the team, but he was starting in the Super Bowl.
So
Alex, your thoughts?
I think Goff's better than all those quarterbacks, I would say.
I think
he's closest to Jimmy G. I think he's definitely better than Teddy Bridgewater.
Basically the same thing. I just think he's better than those quarterbacks. He was drafted number 1 for a reason, and it gives you a chance at upside. And there's really no harm in taking him, because if he sucks, then you suck and you get better picks. So I don't think it really is any harm, because if he does hit his ceiling and he becomes the quarterback he was drafted to be, then we'll be a playoff team and we'll have a chance at winning playoff games. And ultimately, that's all we want in Detroit. To win a playoff game would be a nice start.
You guys want to touch on the contract, basically, of Goff? I know we don't really care much about what the Rams are doing with Stafford, but I found this information from Over the Cap. Because I don't know, we can all agree, contracts are so confusing if you're not like an agent or don't understand all the nitty-gritty of it. And so a lot of contracts on the surface aren't what they appear to be. You have to dig deeper and know all the clauses and bonuses in them. Essentially, assuming these numbers are right, I found it from overthecap.com, they wrote it up. This is basically a 4-year deal that averages out to $26.65 million per year, with $54.3 million guaranteed of that, with the option of the Lions cutting him after 2 years with no additional financial penalty, which is why everyone's talking about the 2-year window, the 2-year bridge gap. But it could go 4 years under contract at around $27 million. And if you look at any spotrack.com. I mean, Goff is like a top 5 paid quarterback in the league right now, but that is just also how like Teddy Bridgewater makes like $21 million a year. That's just the league for quarterbacks. Does it stink if he's not good? Similar to Blake Griffin with the Pistons, where you look at the board and your quarterback is like top 5 paid in the league when he's really not producing. Yes, that's why we got the extra first round pick. But any contract thoughts, Evan, and then we'll go to Alex on that.
Yeah, so like I said earlier in this podcast, we are adding on $13 million to this cap hit this year. Just the difference between Stafford and Goff's contract for this year. We owe him $2.5 million guaranteed on the second day of the NFL season this year. And then for next year, $25.5 million cap hit, $15.5 million guaranteed at the new year.
Mm-hmm.
But if you cut them, you only save $10 million. And like Grant said, after those 2 years, it's a $25 million cap hit. But if you cut them, you don't owe any money. You save $25 million and plus with the 2024. And so when you blare out those numbers, when you see those numbers, when everybody's talking about it, it just states that it's just a gap quarterback. It just states that it's a 2-year window. And yes, he went to the Super Bowl. That's why everybody's going to say, oh, he deserves the contract. And now will the $26 million, if we keep him around in 2023 and 2024, will that seem low on the quarterback total? Probably.
Yeah.
Is it going to be worth it? I don't know. And I certainly don't think he will be from the past 2 years that he's played.
It also means you have to get rid of some defensive players or offensive players, Kenny Golladay, that you may have wanted a chance to keep around when you bring on $13 million more in this immediate year.
I think with it being 2 years, 2 years is not a huge deal when you're not really pushing to be in the playoffs. We're not going to go out.
But I want to be. I want to.
You guys basically
I want to
just
go to
said
the playoffs.
You don't want to.
No,
you would rather
you want to
lose.
rebuild. Grant, you're rebuilding.
I want to win a playoff game.
Hop aboard the rebuild train.
You
Just
guys would rather
hop
lose.
aboard.
You said it. So with that, 2 years, you're not really going to be signing marquee free agents and spending a bag to get players. Worst case, if you want Okwara or you want Golladay, you franchise tag them. You can do that. So it's not like you can't get them. And then lastly, if it works out, then 2 years from now, 2023 should be the year for the Lions. So we'll see.
Piggybacking that, Alex, your head coach, MCDC, Motor City, Dan Quinn, and Dan Campbell.
Dan Quinn.
Butchering names over here.
Shout out Dan Quinn.
Is stated and quoted in saying he wants Golladay and Okwara to be re-signed by the Lions this offseason.
I think it's doable still.
Well, when you mentioned dropping the bag, we can't drop the bag on those guys because we dropped the bag on Jared Goff. So that's not going to be fun.
You can get him with a franchise tag, no problem. And if you want, you can cut Jared Goff after this year. The dead cap hit isn't that bad based on what I've heard, and you could just absorb that money and start from scratch next year if it's that bad this year. So yeah. I don't think it's some terrible contract that's going to hinder us for the next 7 years like Blake Griffin is doing to the Pistons.
Yeah, but it's cool that we have like two of the biggest part of my take athletes in Detroit. We got some good guys, and they'll probably be on the show, so we'll get some content from that if we're looking at positives here.
Yeah, that is a positive.
If we got more to go. Basically, I want to transition this to interesting finds I found from articles today. We've talked about them a lot, but there's still just more, not as intense, not as contract heavy stuff. And we can just hop around. You guys can comment on what ones I found and also throw out ones of your own. I'll kick it off. This is back to the Albert Breer Sports Illustrated article. The beginning was about how I just think this stuff's interesting because we don't know how trades go down in the NFL, really. Like, you can imagine it's like Moneyball, but I don't know. So there was a 6-way FaceTime call, 3 people in Los Angeles side and 3 on ours. And I thought it was interesting to see who's even in this final meeting for the Lions. It was Brad Holmes, Mike Disner, and Rod Wood were our 3 reps on that FaceTime call that signed off on the deal. Evan just made a gross face when I said Rod Wood. I thought that was interesting. He was in the call. The funniest thing is that the Lions were all in the same room, but on different laptops, I believe, the way I interpreted it, and they were echoing off each other, similar to how when we start, and the Rams had to tell us to mute our mics, so we could figure it out. That is just classic Lions, not knowing how to use the technology on this massive FaceTime call. I thought that was hilarious. Something you can definitely picture in your mind happening.
I don't love that Rod Wood was in a meeting when he knows diddly squat about football, it seems. So I'm not a huge fan of that.
Well, he said, I mean, you're not even being mean. He said he's not a football guy when he was hired. Now maybe he's learned some things, but it was very interesting to see who the three were in the final meeting.
Definitely eye-opening.
So an article that I found this morning, instantly woke up and got mad from this one. Boomer Esiason was on a morning talk show, and there was rumors about Stafford told the Lions, do not trade me to New England. And we all can think of reasons why, but Boomer Esiason was basically, I'm going to paraphrase from what he was quoted saying, is he thinks that Stafford didn't want to get traded to New England because Stafford knows how hard he would have to work under the Patriots way and Bill Belichick. And I was just thinking about this for a second. I was like, now, does he know what Stafford is and what he had to do in Detroit? The last game of the year, he played with 3 different injuries. And I know you're not going to say, well, that's just toughness, not working hard. This guy's the definition. You ask every past player, he's a definition of tough, works hard, is a leader by example. You don't get those accolades from other players just by walking through the motions every week. Boomer Esiason, I hope you're wearing a clown mask tomorrow on your morning show because that was a joke.
I'm picturing Evan like rolling over in bed like we all do, checking his phone, reading this Boomer Esiason article, and just being like really angry, throwing a fit in his bed, like, Boomer, what are you talking about?
So mine is
I basically did. I was just super upset. I was like, well, Boomer Esiason, canceled.
Cancel culture, Boomer Esiason. My, I guess it wasn't an article that was interesting, just an observation. I just found it funny. So Dan Orlovsky on ESPN, everyone knows him.
Evan knows him.
Loved it.
Evan is a huge
Loved
fan.
Dan. I watched about a good 4 hours of Get Up this morning. It's on at 8, and then it goes 8 to 10. Watch those 2 hours. Rewatch it when it's on ESPN2 from 10 to noon. I couldn't get enough of it.
Evan's addicted to Get Up.
For one, that's absurd. And two, my observation was just how much Dan Orlovsky is in love with Matthew Stafford. It's almost comical how much he loves him. Telling everyone to sprinkle MVP bets on Matthew Stafford. He's going to have the greatest season in NFL history. Expect Stafford to win a Super Bowl MVP. Just crazy how much Dan Orlovsky loves Stafford, and I just thought it was almost comical to the point where he has a just massive man crush on Matthew Stafford.
He should get like a cut of like Stafford's contract for how much he just inflates his tires on national television.
He really does. And on Twitter, too.
I mean, backing off that, I was watching Get Up, and he did praise Stafford a lot, and I loved every second of it. I just wanted to inject that into my veins this morning to like get myself going. But on Get Up, there was a short like video montage of like Stafford highlights, and I don't know the Lions play-by-play radio announcer by word, but he has a great voice, does a great, fantastic job. But they did a montage of that, and I just appreciate the national media like honoring and knowing how good Stafford is, and basically just seems like, okay, now that he's out of Detroit, the nation can finally see how good Stafford was.
Or bad.
Evan, if the Lions beat the Rams in 3 years from now, Goff versus Stafford, are you going to walk back all these takes? Or like, are we going to sit here and be like, wow, Stafford wasn't that good? Or like what would have to be done for you to change course on this?
I really don't think I'll ever change my course. I mean,
It's
you can be like, all right,
unlikely,
Stafford never doesn't win anything in the Rams, and you could also look at it. Well, the Rams didn't have enough, but
The Rams
I'm just not a
had
big
enough.
believer in like, oh, he didn't win. He didn't win.
Well, he did.
He's still a very talented quarterback, no matter what. He can sling the rock.
Sidearm, have you seen it?
And speaking of, I mean, he started the sidearm, and everybody's like, oh, look at Patrick Mahomes do it.
If Mahomes did that.
Yeah, no, Stafford was doing it long before. On Undisputed this morning, Shannon Sharp instantly said that Matthew Stafford should be in MVP considerations for next year now that he's in the Rams offense.
He was listening to Dan. They're just watching each other's shows.
Yes, I love it. I loved it.
We'll see.
I loved it.
We'll see. Jared Goff has more playoff
We
wins.
can think about this and table it. I don't want to make any drastic decisions. If Stafford wins MVP next year, I'll do something drastic. Like, I'll make a bet on it. A tattoo, shaving my head.
Yes.
I don't know, something like that.
I'll tattoo Stafford on my butt. I'll do it.
You
might already have
I
one.
would like regrettably do that. Evan would be like giddy to do that if he wins MVP.
I think Evan already has a tat on his butt of Matthew Stafford.
A temporary
Peel
one.
away, only lasts 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's getting ready for a permanent one.
We'll scratch off.
Yeah. Last thing I had from the Albert Breer piece, McVay and Stafford just chilling in Cabo together? Collusion? Question mark. I mean, what are we talking about here? I know he clarified in the article that a lot of NFL players go down there. There was a few other ones that were already down there as well. This is like where everyone hangs out in the offseason. But I mean, come on. Like, you can't just be talking about trades like that in person. Going out to dinner afterwards, different, but like, we're not. I mean, we're all adults here. Like, they ran into each other at the daiquiri bar and said, hey, like, I really want to play for you before this happened. I don't know. I think someone needs to look into that. It doesn't smell right.
I don't know the rules on head coaches and quarterbacks talking. I maybe it's just you can't talk to GMs. I don't know. But some would question if it was tampering. I don't really care.
I don't think you can chest bump in Speedos in Cabo together. I think that's against the rules.
You sure Matt Patricia's wearing a Speedo there too?
I don't think Patricia goes to Cabo. I would bet my life savings he does it.
Yeah, he's not welcomed. And speaking of Patricia, there was a quote this afternoon, I believe from TJ Lang, saying that Stafford was mentally and physically drained after his years with Patricia, which like kind of emphasized his one out of Detroit, which is another article that I read this afternoon.
Yeah.
Patricia is trash.
It is a shame. That's a good point to remember big picture that Stafford requested the trade before Dan was hired, before Brad was hired, and you have to credit him for sticking to his guns, but it just goes to show, yes, that Patricia was really like the dark cloud of energy that really forced Stafford out. Switching to the Mike Silver head, he was basically the way Dan Orlovsky pumped up Stafford. Mike Silver was pumping up Goff in an NFL.com article. Very interesting. The first thing I'll leave was just a funny thing to picture in your head, is how he opened the article, was that McVay called Goff himself to tell him he was traded. And according to Mike Silver, Goff had gotten out like an okay, and then his dad's name is Jerry Goff, was on the other line calling Jared. And Jared's like, sorry, coach, I gotta go. Hung up on McVay right then to go talk to his dad. Pretty like awkward and funny to think about. Can't blame Goff for doing that. It's your dad. But like, it's funny that McVay's like, hey, you've been traded. Okay, all right, actually I'm gonna go talk to my dad. Like, see ya, Sean. Like, just a funny way to picture. I'm sure he got back on the phone with McVay. But that is just an interesting relationship, which Silver talked about more, is how that relationship deteriorated so fast. And according to him, Goff was blindsided by this, which is weird to think about. I mean, I guess you can connect the dots where he was given a massive contract, and then it basically, like Evan said, all unraveled in the postseason when they started the backup, and then the comments in the exit interviews postseason press conferences were like, well, he's our quarterback right this second. So then Goff probably had an idea. But basically in a week, I'm guessing he went from assuming he'd be in LA for the next 4 years of this contract to like, you're gone. Like, it just happened so fast. And then lastly, you guys can comment on any one of these, is that Goff is a pretty like mild-mannered, soft-spoken guy. And really his only parting shot, I would say, was the quote where he's excited to be somewhere that I know wants me and appreciates me. And I think it's like the nicest way to like dig someone. Like, it was just a very genuine thing to say. It's an emotion, a human emotion of being appreciated and wanted that everyone can relate to. But that was like his chance to basically say like, yeah, the Rams just didn't want me anymore and I don't love it, but I'm excited to be somewhere where they're appreciating me. And I don't know about Evan, speaking for Evan, but I will welcome Jared Goff and appreciate him, no matter how bad he is.
I would say probably the last thing that I saw was Peter Strager late.
Peter Strager.
Yesterday, I believe.
He's on Good Morning Football.
Yesterday
right?
was saying Goff actually had interest from other teams, and the Lions sought out him.
Could we flip
more
him?
than everybody else?
No.
Could we flip him?
No.
Hey, I'm down for it.
I didn't really write it down.
I'll give you a 7-round pick for Goff. You can take him.
Evan, we just talked about how we're going to welcome and appreciate Jared Goff, and you're going to get rid of him for Mr. Irrelevant.
It's okay.
You know what? Just fill up our pop machines for a year, and you can have them.
Wow. It's okay. So when Jared Goff does do what Stafford couldn't, he wins a playoff game for this city. Evan, you can't be happy about it. You can't cheer for it. You might as well just go be a fan of someone else, because I'm riding this bandwagon until it fails. So I'm excited to have Jared Goff.
After 2 games, this bandwagon is going to be derailed.
When he goes into Los Angeles and beats the Matthew Stafford-led Rams, and then you're going to be like, wow, what did we do?
Be 45-3 at halftime.
I'll let you do that.
On the bright side, I wrote this down. The Lions now have the best Cal QB product in the NFC North, so that's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's right, Aaron. Well, go look at Jared Goff's. I know they weren't there for the same amount of years. But go look at Jared Goff's Cal stats and look at Aaron Rodgers' stats. You can't even compare the two, really. I think he doubled up his passing yards. So look at us.
Did you see the way Aaron Rodgers had to hold the football in college?
No.
He had to hold it by his ear 24/7 every time he dropped back. Aaron Rodgers had to do this.
Did he really?
It's like, that's not natural. Yes, look it up, dude. It's awkward to watch.
Because he stinks. And
Well, obviously, I'm just joking. He's obviously Aaron Rodgers is better now, but I'm just going to use that. I'm going to use that phrase. We have the best Cal QB product in the NFC North, so go us.
Go Lions.
This is the last two things I have in their big picture, so I'll say them and invite you guys to do any big picture. What you want the audience to remember as we leave this conversation is that going into this trade week, the Lions had zero flexibility. They had to get rid of Stafford. They were backed into a corner by a right uppercut, left jab of punches, backed Brad Holmes into a corner for his first move at GM. And now we have flexibility. We have a quarterback we can chest out. We have draft picks to mess with. We have 5 first-round draft picks in the next 3 years. If Jared Goff plays it all like he did in his Super Bowl year and in his other decent year he had, we have 5 draft picks, first-rounders to surround around him to try to build what the Rams had over there. If he stinks, we cut him after 2 years with no extra financial, and then we still have those draft picks. As Jack Harlow once said, we got options. That's a good thing to have. He's a pretty cool guy. He knows what he's talking about. We got options. And Alex touched on it earlier. I'm a little upset he took away my main point because I thought it was like the nail in the coffin. We have to step back and realize none of this Goff talk matters unless our front office overhauls our defense. Like we can draft Justin Fields. We can trade for Jared Goff. We just have a terrible defense right now. And until I don't even know. Mahomes could probably make our defense work, but I'm not sure not many other quarterbacks in the league are going to be able to compete with our defense. So defense is going to be a major priority.
I would have to say, all right, so all the Goff love from you guys.
Yes.
I don't know if we've touched on it. We touched on it a little bit, but what do you think the Lions are going to do now in the draft with the 7th pick?
Oh, good point. I wrote that down, but I think it does not lock us into going for a quarterback, and we are trusting our front office that if they feel like the guy they want based on Brad Holmes' college scouting experiences in this draft, we either, again, I don't think we can get Trevor Lawrence. I think the Jags are dead set on him. But if we want to move up into 2 through 5, because if you look at mock drafts now, I've seen a mock draft where the first 4 picks are quarterbacks. They're just gone. Those 4 are gone. Because Atlanta might draft one with Matt Ryan. I mean, they're gone. People are making moves. So if we want one of those guys, and I'm not a college scout, I don't know what I'm looking at really. I have my own personal preferences. But if we want one of those guys, we have to use one of those draft picks or something to go get it, which we have, again, options, flexibility to do. If we don't feel like there's a guy here, and it's way too early to speculate about next year's draft class, Howell, like you mentioned, Devin, last pod, Slovis, if they think those are the guys, then we then have capital to move up if we have to in that, or we're so bad that we already fall into one of them. Definitely think the odds of us drafting a quarterback have gone down from 90% to 30.
Yeah.
30 to 50. It's a coin flip, I think, if we take a quarterback in the first.
I wrote something similar. I said, if you don't love the quarterback that's available at 7, whether it be Wilson, Fields, Lance, who knows? If you don't love him, like I said, we're not scouts. So if they don't, the GM doesn't love him, the scouts don't love a quarterback at that, why not just trade back, get more picks, and then just continue to build talent? Because if you don't see a difference maker at 7, like, I don't know, Micah Parsons, maybe he's that guy.
Devontae Smith.
Do you need a receiver right now? I don't know.
I wouldn't hurt.
But I don't know. I don't mind the thought of moving back, getting 2 first-round picks, maybe a first and a second, and then just continuing to build through the draft, since this year's not the year, I think most of us would agree.
I agree with both of your points to a certain extent. By one thing I would have to disagree, Grant, is like to trade up and try to get a quarterback. I don't think now that you said we have 5 first-round picks in the next 3 years, I don't think we should throw that all away and try to reach for a quarterback.
I agree.
I feel like in this draft, I think sit at 7, and then if a quarterback that you like or you love falls to you, then take them.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex is saying, if nobody's there that you like, I wouldn't mind trading back either. And I think we're now in a different position where we could. Do I think we will? I don't think so. Because you look at this roster, and Grant, you mentioned Devontae Smith. I believe you draft any position besides tight end in the first round, and you can look at it and be like, all right, I can see why we drafted that position.
Yes. I think I think I was just thinking about this now. It's getting me on the spot. If we don't re-sign Kenny Galladay and our wide receiver core is Quinten Cephas, Geronimo Allison, and I'm missing one name, but it's not good. So those are our 3 core. And we don't draft a wideout number 7, we will know we're in for like a different Lions regime, because that would be a no-brainer pick for a wideout by any of our other GMs, and like the obvious, maybe dumb, flashy, get blinded by the hype pick. I'm not saying I would like it or dislike it. I'm just going to know Brad Holmes does things differently if we don't re-sign Galladay and we do not take a wideout there. Because there's so many wideouts that are being Jamar, Chase, Devontae Smith, Waddle. We'll talk about the draft later. But like, if we don't take a wideout there, we know we're in for something different. Because, I mean, think about all the wideouts we used to take in the first rounds until we finally got Calvin. It's like, we took a wideout. I bought all their jerseys. I bought Mike Williams. I bought them all. It's like, so we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see what they do with 7. Any big picture thoughts from you, Alex?
Big picture thoughts?
The tying the bow.
Yeah, my last main point I want everyone to hear. So
Listen,
I said last week that this is going to be probably the biggest decision in franchise history, and Brad Holmes, thrown into the fire, got to make it himself. I think, considering if teams were to wait and just really force us, we could have got so much less, like maybe not even a first. So to bring in 2, a third, and Jared Goff, I think this just is already, I mean, it's crazy to think that it's better than Bob Quinn, but I don't think Bob Quinn would have been able to pull this off. I feel like he would have done the classic, he'll just trade Stafford to the Patriots for a second rounder and a player. So I think Brad Holmes is already proving he might have a little more ability as a GM than Bob Quinn, and I hope this means that the Lions' future is headed somewhere versus headed nowhere like the last 50 years.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. We didn't mention it yet, but I'm glad, timing-wise, that we got our deal done first. We kind of set the market, and I think the Texans owe us like $1 million as a like little tip, because now like the bar is set there at least for Deshaun Watson, and you compare Deshaun and Stafford, and they're probably going to get, maybe they can use this trade as leverage. But because if Deshaun goes for a ton, then maybe they can talk the trade down with Stafford, like, oh, Stafford's not nearly as good as Deshaun, so we can't give you anywhere near that, and maybe we don't get what we get.
And I agree with Alex's point about how the timing, you might say, oh, it's too early, we're not close enough to the draft, but I think the timing was perfect. They wanted to get it done. They want to get the ball rolling, and like you guys said, we set the quarterback market for this offseason, and this offseason might be dramatic for quarterbacks in different locations. So for the Lions to set it, and I love your point, Alex, about how we might not have got something higher, or we would not got as much if we waited until like right before the draft. So I agree with you guys. I like the way that we set the quarterback market. We reached high. We got it. And as of right now, Brad Holmes has paid off he can negotiate in trade talks.
Did we just nail that from every angle possible, or did we not?
I think we hit most points.
Look at us. Bam, 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 bam. All right. I don't really have a transition for this because we just talked about Matt Stafford for an hour and a half, it feels like. But we got to talk about Michigan State basketball, because Michigan basketball is in a COVID pause. So we have to talk about this live. Yeah, so we have to talk about Michigan State basketball. Yes, this is live. We're a live podcast. It gets edited out afterwards. But yeah, we're live right now. Would you like me, the Michigan fan, to give my brief thoughts and let you guys have the floor? Because I imagine you guys have some things to say. Or would you guys like to go first and then I hop in?
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna break it down one game at a time. I know
Sounds good.
they're not same result, but they were different games overall, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rutgers. Kithier scored 0 points. I need to see Sissoko play more. That's where I'm going to start with that. I love Sissoko. I'm going to continue to pump his stock up on this. I just like him. I think he's your guys' best chance at center. And Kithier does all the little things well, but he scored 0 points. So, Sissoko. Other bullet point, you guys only shot 5 free throws in that game. That is bad. Joey Hauser needs more post touches, because every time I see him play, again, I only watch the highlights of these games, hand up, but when Hauser gets post touches, he seems to be able to go ISO with people well down there and make shots. This might be for both games. Too many contested mid-range jumpers, not enough layups, and then open threes are just being missed. That's all I got from Rutgers.
Evan, you want to lead off here on this terrible?
Yeah, I mean, I love the scouting report because I agree with most of it. I do. I mean, I'm going to start with the Rutgers game, Alex, and then I'll throw it to you. Okay. Then we can get back to Sunday's game. The Rutgers, first of all, Did I think we would win the ball game going into it? Yes,
For sure.
I did. I had faith in the team. You look at it and getting down 15-0.
Not good.
No, that is probably the worst start you could have, and especially against, I wouldn't say they're elite. They're a good basketball team, and they're playing at home, but they've never beat Michigan State before while playing in the Big Ten. And then they came back. Did we look ugly in the first half? Yes, but we came back and we had 6 points at the half. We were down to 6 points. We were down 6 at the half, and then the second half, and Rutgers punched us in the mouth. And we didn't respond. And based off of Grant's stats, I didn't look into stats because I watched every second, and I watched my eyes bleed after watching the game.
Evan took a shower after that performance.
Yeah, I felt dirty watching that. Obviously, you could knee pick or whatever you want to call it around, but we just don't have a scorer. We don't. And I was talking about this for a while with another friend. We don't have somebody that can get the basketball. And everybody's going to say, oh, Cassius Winston. You're missing Cassius Winston.
Well, obviously.
And I think,
think?
I agree with that 100%. But right now, I think I would rather have Xavier Tillman over Cassius Winston on this roster that we have. And I'm not doing the what if, and I don't want to look in the past. So I'm looking at this team. It's not going to be fixed overnight. We go to face Iowa Tuesday night.
Woof.
Pray. Maybe the basketball gods will be on our side. But the Rutgers loss just showed how I don't want to say bad, but
Vulnerable.
how lackluster we were. And COVID hit us at the worst time. I get that, but the Rutgers game was ugly. It was probably the ugliest basketball game I've ever watched in Michigan State history.
37 points is so bad. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's the only shot I want to
Second lowest amount of points in Tom Izzo's coaching career.
What a fact. Alex stats over there.
Didn't even write that down, just knew it. But anyways, so I think number one thing that all Michigan State fans need to get in their head is that this is not your average, typical Michigan State basketball team.
This is not
even
your
close.
average Michigan State basketball team. Writing that down.
Wrote some points here. Like Evan said, we cannot score the basketball. Michigan State cannot score the basketball. Okay,
Disassociated.
they don't have scorers. You could say Aaron Henry, he can score. Personally, I've never seen him really be able to put the team on his back when it's not against Detroit Mercy or someone that's just not that good. He continually doesn't really show up in big games. I don't think he is a guy that can carry the load for you. Joey Hauser, I thought he could do that after the Wisconsin game. No show since then, really, other than the Ohio State game, but it sounds like we're going to talk about that in a second. So, number one, we don't have a dominant scorer, and we, as a team, we don't gel together on offense at all. Another thing, shooting. This is has to be one of the worst shooting teams in Tom Izzo's coaching career. With Gabe Brown out, it's hard. He's probably one of our better shooters, but I'm not sure he makes a difference in a 30-point loss at Rutgers. So either way, we're not shooting the ball well. I don't know if it's a slump or if this team just can't shoot. But then lastly, on offense, we do not have an interior scorer. We don't have Nick Ward on his little bunny hooks. We don't have Tillman. We don't have Suton. We don't have anyone from the past like we on this team. You can't tell me Marcus Bingham is an offensive scorer. I saw his little Dirk shot against Rutgers. That's never going to happen. Kithier has proven he's not a scorer down low.
Sissoko alley-oops.
Sissoko's too raw to score.
No.
Marble's
Man,
not
yes,
big
thank
enough
you.
to play center. So we just don't have anyone down low that can score. And that's the biggest problem.
Hauser's your best interior scorer.
And he is not a center.
He needs post touches.
And so then on defense, I think, like we said last time, we're making strides defensively. Post defense is struggling. Purdue's big man dominated us. Rutgers dominated us on the offensive boards and made a bunch of dumb bunny shots. So the team just isn't good. Just look ahead to 2021 and 2022 if you're a Michigan State basketball fan.
You're giving up. Well, we'll get to that in a second. To back up Alex stats, your Alex stats, 20% three-point shooting in both games. Key stat to me. I mean, that's terrible, dude.
Awful.
You might as well put us three out there, and I guarantee we'd shoot better than 20% if they were like semi-open looks. Against Ohio State, Gotta get out of the way. My former coach at Butler, Chris Holtman, looked awesome in that game. I mean, he had serious drip on the sideline. The quarter zip was awesome. The hair was great. The white shoes were popping. But to the actual game, 31 free throws from 5. That's good. Improvement. Got to the rim, got fouled. Also, the refs were calling everything it felt like in that game. 31 free throws, though. That's good. That's better ways to score when you can't shoot the ball well. Now, this is a question. No, you guys go. And then I'm going to ask one question at the very end that I want you guys to answer, besides one that we're already going to discuss. But you guys go about this game.
I'll just say one thing about the Ohio State game. So this is probably the first time in 5 to 6 years, I would say, since I've noticed Michigan State in a Big Ten game where there's a noticeable talent gap. You could tell Ohio State had more talent than we did on the floor. On top of all of our mistakes, that's why we lost by 17 or whatever it was. It's just there's a gap in talent because our team does not gel together. And then that leads to blowout losses. We haven't really been competitive in Big Ten games, other than the wins.
Wisconsin was competitive.
The others are all double-digit losses.
Merry Christmas.
Including a double-digit loss to Northwestern.
Not competitive.
30-point loss to Rutgers.
No.
17-point
Purdue was
loss
competitive, but they're not the standard.
to Ohio State. And a 20-point incoming loss on Tuesday.
Tight game against Nebraska. Evan, thoughts on the Ohio State game?
With it being the most recent game, it has the most foundation in my head. I think the thing that drives me nuts the most is the little things that I can pick up from watching it from my television that to me just screams like basketball 101 at the college level. The miscommunication of talking on screens, hedging when you're supposed to be hedging, going over top of screens on three-point shooters, getting absolutely buried underneath the basket in transition. Marble did it multiple times.
I pointed out to Alex when we were watching. I was like, he caught the ball one play in the restricted area.
Yes.
On the finger point and one by that guy that they kept showing on the broadcast. He caught it in the restricted area under the basket. Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. CBS was zooming on those two battling down low, and that dude was throwing elbows at Marble's chest. Marble was taking it with like ease, but it was just something to look at. But it's just the compound of mistakes that this team can't rally back. Yeah, we made a run in the second half and got within 10 or 9 with like 4 minutes left. But at that point, it was too late. Offensively, now this jogged my memory. If you look back on the Wisconsin game, we don't have a post offensive player, but we were getting post touches to Kithier, to Hauser, that freed up the offensive more. And we scored. I mean, if you look back at it, that was probably one of our highest scoring games recently, of recent memory. That's one thing I look at. And then obviously, if the other team is making shots, because our defense isn't like it should be or used to be, Izzo's biting his words about how this team can be so good on defensively. We're not getting like the easy 15 to 20 points in transition that we're used to getting.
No.
And so now you put us in half court. If any team puts us in half court offense, they're going to win the ball game. Because we have no flow, like Alex says, we don't gel offensively. And then everybody says, well, you need to get to Hauser. You need to get it to Hauser. You need to get to Hauser. And I agree with that. I do. But the way that this team is performing offensively, as soon as you get it to Hauser down on the post, Ohio State just went and doubled right away. Because they didn't care who would get the skip pass out of that double, because they know that person offensively isn't going to be a threat.
Yeah, it's tough.
And when we're shooting 20% the last 2 games, leave them open because they're not going to make it.
Right.
It hurts. I mean, yes, it does. It's painful to watch. Like I disagree with Alex in the aspect of, do I think there's a talent gap? Absolutely not. I don't think there's a talent gap. I feel like I don't want to say it's not X's and O's, but it's just the gel. It's just offensively something that has to give. I couldn't tell you what it is. I mean, there's a group of small mistakes, but I can tell you a big picture. If you fix this one big picture, I don't know what that big picture is.
Also, Evan, to go to your point, I mean, we're not the most like gritty X's and O's podcast, but when you're talking about the fundamentals, you notice that drive you crazy. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Alex and I have sat here watching Michigan State games saying, why aren't they landing on 2 feet when they drive and have to pass? I think half of Michigan State's turnovers would be eliminated if when Rocket, Watts, or Aaron Henry drove. I mean, I've seen everyone guilty of it. They don't. If you watch Villanova play basketball, I use them as the gold standard for fundamentals in college basketball.
Yeah, they are.
When they drive, they are jump stopping, landing on 2, pivoting, swiveling, not panicking, and finding the open shooter with a good pass in the shooting pocket. When I watch Michigan State play, a lot of times they will drive, realize the mid-range J that they shouldn't be trying to take is guarded, and then they jump throw a pass to their left or right with one hand, and it's either high or low, and that's not going to help you be a better shooting team. As people say, the best shooting teams are usually the best passing teams, and so often you don't see the passes hitting people in the right pockets. And go ahead on that. I know you saw you raise your hand, but that's the fundamentals that stick out to me on offense.
And I love your point. I do. I think it hits it on cue with like the small little mistakes. I mean, a couple other mistakes that I thought of was like closing out on shooters. Stay down. You're not a shot blocker. Stay down when you're closing out. Because as soon as you get up in the air, they're going to drive around you. And we can't cover anybody in front of us to begin with. And then I look at how do I want to put this? Izzo doesn't call all the plays. I get that. But when Ohio State, what they aggressively hedged us anytime we had a high ball screen up beyond the 3-point line, top of the circle, they would just hedge us extremely hard. And it seemed to me that whoever was in charge of it, Lawyer, Hogard, or Rocket, would still go back and try to ask for that drag screen from somebody. And they would just hedge us, and we would turn the ball over. Rocket Watts had such a bad offensive possession, he got put into like the death triangle where he had to step over the line to turn the ball over. It was that bad. Move the offense somewhere else. Put it on the wing. Go into the high post on the elbow near the free throw line. Run your offense from there. You got to start mixing it up, fellas. You have to.
I have 3 quick mini rants. Number 1, Aaron Henry leaving his feet when he drives to the lane and passing, like Grant said, terrible. I can't watch it anymore. He does it 4 times a game. That's why he probably has the most turnovers on our team. Second,
Can't dribble with his right hand either.
Marcus Bingham, tallest player on our roster, leaves his feet every time someone pump fakes. Every single time. He's the tallest player on the team. Just put your hands up, stand on 2 feet, and just contest the shot. You don't need to block every single shot, and you don't really need to jump when you're that tall. Third, this is just Michigan State basketball over my whole life. So 23 years, if anyone cares. If we get called for another moving screen, I can't believe how many moving screens we get per game. It's at least 2, and it's every single game. You watch the next game, and I guarantee we'll have 2 moving screens. It happens every single game, and I don't know if the refs are out to get those moving screens, but it has got to stop. I can't watch wasted possessions on moving screens at the top of the key that don't even have an effect on the play. That's all.
It's brutal. Those basically are turnovers. They turn into.
They are turnovers.
My last point, Grant, before you get to your question, I'm addicted to it, but I hate getting on Twitter after a bad game.
But you have to, though.
Michigan State Twitter, I hate it. I absolutely do. But my biggest takeaway from it is the fair weather fans that are out here asking for Izzo to get fired. Get them out. Get them out. I don't want them wearing green and white anymore. Because these fans have no idea what they're talking about.
Like
they're asking for Izzo to get fired.
I will give my point on Tom Izzo and Grant's coming question.
They don't. That's my biggest takeaway. The whole hate on Izzo. I get it. You can hate him for that game. But the grand scheme of wanting him fired, those people are clowns.
Oh, I mean,
another clown.
Did you see him?
Cancel them.
Yeah, did you see him in the Hulk costume? He's an awesome coach. You have to keep him.
I just like Izzo for one game. Ben Carter playing over Jaren Jackson against Syracuse.
No, I think that's tough. That's tough. All right. Question before the real question. Do you guys think MSU is playing too many people? Because in both those games, I know Rutgers was a blowout towards the end, but Ohio State was competitive like the whole way, pretty much, within striking distance. 11 people played in each of those games. And you look at some of the minutes where like Kithier's not even cracking 10 minutes, and then all those big guys, Marvel, aren't cracking 10 minutes. You know how hard it is to get into a flow in a basketball game when you're playing 11 guys? And if Alex talks about a talent problem, it's only going to get worse if you're playing 11 guys. You almost need to run. I mean, Henry plays over 30 minutes, but you almost need to run the guys that are your guys like 30-plus minutes. I mean, go down to 7 or 8, but 11, if the team's not that talented, no one can get, especially the big men, cannot get in the flow playing less than 10 minutes a game left and right. I don't know who wants to start, but that's what I know. Is I was looking at the box score. I'm like, that's 11 guys. That's a lot in college basketball.
I think we have talent. I will say that. I said there's a talent gap. I just think that the talent, we're not seeing it right now. And so to the point of, are we playing too many guys? I think, yes, we're playing too many guys, but the problem Izzo is having is when he's leaving guys out there, they're making so many mistakes that it's hard not to just yank them out. Because when Hogard runs down the floor, who, he was starting for a while, he's not starting anymore. The last 2 games, he played so bad and had so many turnovers. I don't know how you don't pull him out to the point where it's just harming you. You would hope they get in a rhythm, but he's running the risk of if he leaves them in too long, they're just going to get the game to spiral out of control. So I think he's just having troubles with who to play and when.
I back off of Alex's point. I agree, and then I also disagree. I agree with it's so hard to keep somebody in there, to have them keep on playing when they're making so many mistakes, so many little mistakes. And the average fan probably doesn't see like the small mistakes that some of us do see, and that's why he's getting pulled. But I also agree with you need to, at some point, there need to be a cutoff line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, you're not getting minutes. There's got to be, you got to start riding with what you said, 8 or 9 guys. To maybe condense it down, maybe get somebody the flow of basketball. But I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. And some of it, I feel like he's trying to go to somebody to get a spark, trying to go to somebody to give them something new, but it's just not working. So that's why the subs and the minutes are so off.
Yeah, and to be fair, I guess if I were to say that to Coach Izzo, like, hey, why are you playing so many guys? Probably like, Grant, we were just in a COVID break for 2 weeks, so these guys aren't in the best game shape. So he'd probably throw that back in my face, and you have to realize that big picture. But I think we can all agree towards nitty-gritty time when you're trying to win each game to make the tournament, you're going to need 8 or 9 guys you can rely on. And that leads perfectly into pat on my back transition. What is the percentage chance as we sit here today that Michigan State makes the tournament? You can just throw it out percentage-wise and not defend yourself, or you can say it and also defend yourself. I don't really care. Who wants to start?
I'll start, and I'll say a 49% chance.
Ooh.
Just under
Not a coin flip.
half. And my reason for it is I have faith in this team. I'm so very optimistic in this team. I'm optimistic in our coach to turn it around. He has in the past. And we have winnable games on our schedule left. So my biggest thing, yes, we're not playing well right now, and it's obvious to the nation. Can you win games down the stretch to get us our talk in? And so I feel like we can do that, yes. So that's why I'm saying it's 49%. Yes, we can do that. And then you have the Big Ten tournament. No, I do not think we're going to win it, but you win a couple in the Big Ten tournament, that's going to help your odds. Then my biggest thing thinking about this was, if I was a part of the NCAA committee,
Okay.
would I, looking at the big picture,
Okay.
money involved,
Yes.
do I want a mid-major, small, no-name,
No.
or do I want Michigan State in there who's on the bubble?
Magic Johnson
And
in the stands. Yeah.
And as a Michigan State fan, I would like to think we have built a reputation where they put us in over it. Give us the first 4 game. I don't care. Give us. Just tell me we're in.
Bring it on. They should put that in the locker room in the Breslin Center instead of like Tom's like fake rah-rah pump-up speech. It's just like Evan being like completely honest, like, yeah, I mean, we're not great. Like, we'll take the first 4. Like, we're gonna bring in more money than a mid-major. Let's go play for that, guys. Alex.
I think to Evan's point, if we're on the bubble, we're getting it over some of these other Utah State or other like programs like that. We're gonna get in over them. It's no different than if Duke was on the bubble, they're getting it. I would say we're in that tier. Now, in terms of percentage chance of us making the tournament, I have it.
It's gonna be low.
It's contingency here. So if we lose tomorrow, Michigan State, they lose tomorrow at Iowa, I would say it's below 25%. If they win, I think they have right around where Evan said, like a 45% chance.
When they win.
The only reason I'm giving them any chance at all is because of what Tom Izzo has proved to do in the late stages of every season. Last year, they had a 3-game losing streak, turned in 6 wins in a row, top 25 wins, and everyone was thinking, oh, they have a decent chance to cut down the nets. So things can change really quickly with Tom Izzo as your coach. The only thing I just worry about is we do not have Cassius Winston.
No.
We don't have Tillman.
Nope.
We don't have Denzel Valentine,
No,
Jaren Jackson, Miles Bridges. You don't have any of those type of
Ben Carter
players. Who knows? You could get hot here. You could stun Iowa tomorrow, and then all of a sudden everything changes, and we're talking about how
When
Michigan
we
State,
stun Iowa.
Matt McQuaid.
Michigan State's got a decent chance.
Joe Thornton. Who's the Thornton?
Austin Thornton.
Austin Thornton. You don't have him.
Get in the
Kenny
Big Ten
Kaminsky.
tournament.
Russell Bird. Come on, we're throwing
But
out
you do
names here.
have Hoiberg's son
Jack.
and Izzo's son. Maybe they should get involved.
The only way it's happening is they have to go on a win streak, and it has to be soon. If you lose the Iowa game, you better win your next 5 after
You think?
that. And you better win some games in the Big Ten tournament.
My percentage is 35%. Take it or leave it. No explanation.
Take it.
It's perfectly right in the middle of Alex's looking at that. Moving on to a game that everyone cares about. The Super Bowl is on Sunday. This Sunday. Pretty cool stuff. Now, obviously, we're the Shot of Michigan Sports podcast. Real talk, real Michigan sports. So, so we're not going to get into X's and O's of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. We do have to relate this, though, we can relate this to Michigan. We can relate this to Detroit. So what we have here is 3 hypothetical questions to end the show. The first one is more sport specific than the last 2, and it's about our quarterback. Because as we know, the Lions just basically stuck their necks out there to bring in a new franchise quarterback potentially. And if he's not the guy we're going to be drafting, a new franchise quarterback, hopes of a new franchise quarterback. So my question, but as the ride or die Lions guys, if I could promise you that the Lions are bringing in the next Tom Brady, which means you get all the accolades, you get 8 Super Bowl appearances like in New England, you get 6 Super Bowls. This one's his 9th with Tampa Bay, but let's pretend he's just in like his New England. You get 6 Super Bowls basically, and just a guy that just wins. He knows what to do to win. What would you give up or sacrifice in your life for that to happen? Who wants to go first?
Employment. So,
no, employment.
I would go the next however many years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever, unemployed. I would just figure it out, and I'd be a Lions groupie. I'd follow that team on the road. I'd live in a box. I would just do everything Lions related and hope and just watch all those victories, watch those Super Bowls, and I would just live on that high for 10 years with no income. None.
You're like they're a rock band. Like I'm just a groupie of the
I would
Lions.
follow them around like AC/DC.
Employment. What a line. Evan, you want to follow that up? What did you have?
Yeah, so I was thinking, what do I do with my daily life? What could I give up? I was thinking of some things. I'm like, I can't give that up. I couldn't give that up. And I was like, all right. To have those Super Bowls, I was thinking,
6 of them.
For the rest of my life, I could be single. I could do it. I could do it. You know what? For the Lions to win a Super Bowls after Super Bowls, I could be single for the rest of my life. I honestly think I could. Do I want to? Absolutely not. It's looking like I might, though. But I feel like I could live single for the rest of my life if that is to get a Tom Brady caliber player on the Lions and to win the Super Bowls.
Evan's like pillow talk at night instead of like having his wife is just like 6 pictures that he loves from all those Super Bowls. Oh my God, that's incredible.
Between Evan and I, we are going to be some low-life bums during this Lions ride.
Unemployed and single for life. Damn, now I feel like mine aren't up to snuff. I mean, there's still something.
Cutting off a thumb?
No, I didn't go that far. I said I promised that for every Super Bowl that we get, so 6 of them, I will go 6 years of essentially being bald. I will shave my hair down to buzzed for 6 years and live like on a 1 guard, just every day, just for 6 years for the number of years that we won. Or I would give up eating Taco Bell and pizza for the rest of my life. And if you know me about Taco Bell, you know that's like the real blow. But I would definitely go buzz cut for 6 years, no doubt.
That is nothing.
Pull off the look.
That's what I'm saying. That's why when you said it, I was like, buzzing your hair. It's nothing compared to just willingly being unemployed and then also just choosing to be. Evan would be like, oh my God, what a callback by my brain right now. It'd be like in the scene in The Hangover when they're driving to Vegas and Alan goes like, yeah, that's why I've managed to be single all this time. You just have Evan going, yeah, like, oh, Evan, like you haven't found anyone yet. Oh, the Lions won 6 Super Bowls. That's why I've managed to be single this whole time.
I think it's crazy that you called us out for having backup teams, as you said. And Evan and I would give up so much more than you would for the Lions to have success.
I realize that you guys do care.
Grant loves the Buffalo Bills. Don't forget it.
No, they were my playoff team that I wanted to see win. I have a rule as a tried and true man of morals for the Lions that when the Lions are statistically eliminated, I have to find a playoff team that I want to support. And they never win. So if I pick your team next year, just know that they're not going to win. I was Seattle the year before, and they lost to Green Bay. Wow, that was a good question. Holy cow. You guys brought the heat on that one. For the last 2, they're not as intense, but they're just interesting questions. These come from we have to give credit where credit's due. They came from the Answer the Internet card game that Barstool Sports has. Great game. I would recommend buying it. Perfect for parties. A lot of questions. There's some sports ones in there. So the first question, hypothetical, again about the Super Bowl, is it better to watch the Super Bowl at your home or like a little home gathering or at a bar?
Bar if your team's not in the Super Bowl. Home if your team is in the Super Bowl.
I would say it would be opposite, Alex. If your team's at the Super Bowl, I think you would want to be around like more of the fans' experience.
I think for
and then if your team's not in it, then I would want to be at home. But I think overall, I would say at home because you can control the environment, you can control what you're eating, you can control what you're drinking.
God, this
100%,
man's
I would
so
say
smart.
home over the bar.
So smart. I wrote at home, no brainer. And I would actually apply this to almost every big game you watch for sports, like your team, because there's just too many dummies at the bar, and the volume is always give or take. It's either great pumped in volume, or you can barely hear it, or God forbid they're playing music over the game volume. It's like, what are we doing? And also, there's no guarantee that you get to sit at a crowded bar. You might be standing, sweating in the corner with your elbows tucked to your chest, rooting on your favorite team in your favorite game. I think for sure it has to be at home. Now, at home could get tricky too, because if people get invited that, you know, don't know big game etiquette, it can get bad because then you're in a confined space. There's no escaping someone's like confined area. So you just hope everyone can kind of like be calm, realize that yes, commercials are funny during the break, but that's not like the main point of the game here. But I definitely lean home for like almost every big sporting event. Now this last one, very curious to see what you guys say. Also from Answer the Internet. And I added in our team, the Lions. If you could go to the Lions' first Super Bowl game ever, but you'd have to stand with your back to the field and wear headphones, quotes, can't hear clearly what is going on, would you still go?
No.
I would say yes.
Wow.
I would
Really?
go. I have, like, when it comes to, like, the sports teams that you cheer on in the biggest games, I have FOMO. And I want to be there. I want to experience the in-game, the atmosphere. It's just way better than at home. I get it. You can control your environment at home. But the Lions' first Super Bowl, I'm sorry, I'm going, no matter what it takes.
You don't see a single ounce of that game, and you're going.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
I'm
what
going.
happens. I'll tell you how the game goes.
Really?
So you guys can go together, and I'll tell you about it.
Oh, I thought you meant you were going to like walk out what you think's going to happen in the first Lions Super Bowl appearance. But I appreciate you looking out for us. No, I think I'm for sure. I wrote no with like 5 O's. That'd be terrible. Because, I mean, I guess if I'm thinking about it from Evan's point, because I thought we'd all say no, but I guess maybe you can kind of get a read on body language from the crowd. Like, you're going to notice the Lions fans stand up. And if we're really cheating, you'd be able to be looking at the replay board above you with your back to it. But even then, like, not being able to look at the field behind you, and you can't really tell in the moment who just scored, no. I don't think I could. I'd much rather be around, like, fans I grew up with, you guys, not to get sentimental, watching the lie-downs in the Super Bowl, you know, with the guys and going crazy, maybe lighting a couch on fire if we win. Never would do that. That's a federal crime. But, like, something like that, you know, like, just ride or die. And then if you guys lose, you're there to console with people and be like, oh, well, maybe next year. Who knows? Maybe when Jared Goff, we had another piece for Jared Goff. We can win it next year.
Jared Goff.
You had to plug that in, didn't you?
Yeah, no, it just felt right. All right, hypotheticals aside, let's give our predictions because we are football fans, football guys. What's your prediction for the Super Bowl?
I would say I have the Chiefs 35, Tampa Bay 31.
Close game.
Chiefs 31, Bucks 27.
Chiefs 38, Bucks 28.
I think we're all in agreement then.
So mine was biggest, but yeah.
So put all your money on the Bucks, folks.
Yeah. Mush Alex over there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would say it's the best quarterback Super Bowl of our lives matchup
Oh yeah.
wise.
Oh yeah.
The GOAT versus the potential
incoming GOAT.
Yeah.
We definitely know we're not going to get a 13-6 ball game like somebody was in.
All right. Well, that is the show today. A long show. You better enjoy it because we don't.
Last thing. I want to add a last thing.
Yeah, whoa. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
We do have breaking news. The Pistons will not be playing their game tonight because of COVID.
Oh, no.
Outbreak in the Detroit Pistons roster. Don't have enough eligible players. They will not be playing against Denver tonight on Monday the 1st.
Wow. Well, Pistons and Red Wings are doing their best tank jobs. They're losing. So, I mean, that's basically like a pat on the back. Good job, guys. All right. You can follow along with this show Follow any of our social accounts. Twitter is at ShotOfMS. Instagram is at ShotOfMS. TikTok, because we couldn't have them all the same, is at Shot of Michigan Sports. Email is shotofmichigansports@gmail.com. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are great places to see all the clips that we post out throughout the week of the show. Email is best for if you have any questions, and I'm serious. We are serious. You ask us a question about Michigan sports on this show, we are going to answer it. We want the topics. We want to involve you guys in the show. Maybe one day we'll open up a voicemail line, but we kind of need you guys to prove you're invested by emailing us first. That's easier than calling in. So email us a question, do it. Also, on the Apple Podcast reviews, Spotify, please rate us 5 stars and give us a review. It helps us in whatever algorithm they have. Subscribe and like on the YouTube side of things, because that's how they do it. And again, submit those questions.
Not every week the Lions trade a franchise quarterback. You have to ask some questions.
If we missed, I don't know how it's possible from that hour-long Stafford Goff talk, but if we missed something, you ask your question about it. And with all that being said, let's close this out with a cheers to Jared Goff.
To Jared Goff with nothing in
Will
my
not be
hand.
cheering for Jared Goff. Cheer for Matthew Stafford to win a Super Bowl in LA.
I'll
Cheers
drink to
to
that.
the Lions and never rooting for the Rams.